What if we told you there's a way to make music class feel more like a studio than a lesson? That's the goal of teaching for artistic behavior. Join us as we uncover the secrets to nurturing young artists in the music classroom.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, Empowering Students in Music Education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad that you've joined us today. So, Kathryn, today's guest was fun. Won't you agree?
Yes, really fun. It was really awesome to talk to her and get a great insight into how her classroom of multiple grade levels really looks like. It's an exciting place to be.
Absolutely. And I thought it was really neat that she took a pedagogy, this teaching for artistic behavior, something that she learned about through an art teacher and really was able to apply that to the music classroom. And I also thought it was so fun that, there would be moments where she would say, it's chaos, but the joy, the joy in her, everything that she was saying, acknowledging that, it looks a little bit different than what we sometimes imagine a music classroom might look like because the students are doing some different things, but you can just see how much joy it brings her as a teacher. And then you can hear her describe how much joy it brings the students. And I think that's where it's worth it.
Yeah. And I also heard, do not do this overnight. You cannot do it overnight and you will fail if you do it overnight. Right. And the kids will be like, what are we doing? Right. The whole thing took a lot of time, but well spent time, and there's no turning back.
Yeah. And I think it was also, encouraging to hear her say that, yes, you can do the baby steps, and that's what's going to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to the interview, do you feel like you're drowning in lesson plans and wish that you had a musical support system in your corner? Well, grab your favorite mug because we have just the thing for you, and that's the Pass the Baton Coffee Club.
For less than the cost of that fancy latte, you'll unlock a treasure trove of free resources. Get invited to our monthly planning parties, think virtual coffee break with amazing lesson ideas, and score sweet discounts on music education goodies in our store.
Or if you just want to lend a hand to the Pass the Baton mission of empowering music teachers and music students, you can become a supporter, only $2 a month.
Think of it as a way to fuel your passion, elevate your teaching, and connect with a vibrant community of music educators.
So be sure to check out the link. It's in the show notes. You can learn more and you can join the coffee club today. You deserve it. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are really excited to be joined by our guest today, Emily Meyerson. Emily, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Yeah. So we were just mentioning a moment ago that I found an article through the Yamaha website, because you were recently a Yamaha 40 under 40. So congratulations on that. And
thank you.
The article was just talking about really cool things going on in your classroom. And oh my goodness, we have to talk to Emily. We need to learn more about what this is and share it with our audience. So this is going to be exciting.
Yes. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here. Like I said, I love what I do, and I love talking about what I do. And I hope that something I say today is going to resonate with somebody else and they're going to realize they can do it too.
Yes, that's the goal.
Yes. Well, could you start with introducing yourself a little bit more and telling us about your current role in education?
Sure. It's a laundry list. I'm so sorry. So I've been teaching for 14 years. I'm starting year 15 in a couple weeks, actually. I have a bachelor in music from Bowling Green State University here in Ohio. And I teach for North Baltimore local schools, which I'm sure probably none of your listeners have ever heard of in the history of ever. It's a super small town, 3,200 people here, very rural area. And I've been here for my whole career so far. So it's a great place to be, and I have really been able to grow a program, which is really awesome. So now I'm seeing some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today moving up into high school and beyond, which is really is there a better payoff for an educator? I don't think so. So I teach general music for kindergarten through sixth grade, and that's really where my tab pedagogy comes in, although I use it dispersed all the way up. I teach fourth, fifth, and sixth grade choir. I teach a middle school choir. I teach a high school choir. I co-direct a jazz ensemble. I teach a 4-level guitar course and then 2 levels of advanced strings. So, and I drama club direct the entire thing. And I'm a volleyball coach because, I don't have enough plates spinning around. So that's pretty much, that's the little laundry list.
Wow. Oh, that's so fun though, because it sounds like you really get to see the kids throughout the
Yes.
span. And
It is one of my favorite. People always ask me what my favorite grade is. And I'm like, it really depends on the day. And that's an honest answer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really fun. And then even with the volleyball, you get to see the students in a different way. And I bet you they love that.
It is very different. And it's different students too, which is nice. Sometimes students I haven't seen since elementary school because they choose not to pursue music. But yeah, really cool.
Oh, that's super fun. All
Real
right.
quick,
well, let's kind of go ahead.
I was gonna say, how many grades? I guess just for me, I'm like, gosh, it's because you have that span. What your school population? How many students do you have?
So our graduating classes are typically between 40 and 60 students. So it's very small classes. And at the elementary level, we have 3 classes per grade. So they're typically pretty small classes. Mm-hmm. For a while, I'm thankful this is the first year we have gotten away from it because we've had enough people, but we've been doing 1 grade level at a time. A class and a half comes to related arts. So that's been a little tricky. Last year it was first grade, which was interesting to maneuver.
Yep.
So this year we're back to we're back to a regular schedule. So hopefully that will allow me to get back to it was very difficult to do what I do with so many students in the room at a time. So, we're always learning and adapting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, what stuck out to me in the article that I was reading is that you were talking about teaching for artistic behavior. You refer to it as tab pedagogy.
Yes.
What is this? Give us some background.
So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version here because there's really a lot. And I can't take credit for any of this. This is a pedagogy that already existed and I happened upon it. So tab, teaching for artistic behavior, essentially in a nutshell is that you want to teach the students to behave like artists or musicians and not just teaching them the skills. Okay. And while that is a very important part of it, please don't the takeaway is not that I'm not teaching skills and standards. But you're teaching them to think and behave the way a professional musician or artist would think and behave. So this pedagogy is actually, it's a visual arts pedagogy. And that's how I stumbled upon it. In the summers, I'm a professional artist. So it makes sense to those things coming together for me. My very best friend was hired several years ago to be our visual arts teacher at the elementary school. And she actually was the one, and have to give credit where credit is due. She was the one that had come upon this pedagogy, and she came to one of our team meetings after school and started telling me about it. She was like, I think I'm going to try to start implementing this. And my mind was spinning because all I could think about is, what would this look like in a music room? And my first thought was, there's just no way it's going to be too loud and too chaotic and there's going to be too much going on. But I really wanted to find a way to make it work. And the more set she was on making that happen in her classroom, the more set I became, I think, really on trying to figure out how I could make it work in my classroom as well, because I was just thinking about all of the opportunities for collaboration and projects moving back and forth across the hallway and just so many things that we could do to really enrich our students' education, which is why we're here, right? So there are 3 main tenets of tab education. And every decision that is made about the pedagogy comes from these 3 questions or tenets. It's called a 3-sentence curriculum. So the first is, what do artists do? So obviously in my brain, that's what do musicians do, which could be so many things, from producers to artists to guitar players to songwriters to conductors and violinists and, whatever. The second is the big one. The child is the artist. So the child is the musician. And a thing to keep in mind is that kid music doesn't look like grown-up music. Kid art doesn't look like grown-up art. So when we're holding our students to standards, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then the third one, which is a really hard one for a lot of teachers that I've talked to that have tried to implement, is that the music room or the art room becomes the child studio. It's their space. It's their creative place. And really, your role as a teacher shifts from a person who stands at the front of the classroom lecturing or teaching or playing or whatever to a facilitator and a guide. And that's really tricky. And that's the thing you really have to be prepared for, because I could have 20 students in a class and 20 students doing 20 different projects or interested in 20 different things. And not only do I have to stay on top of that, but I also have to look at those things and say, what is this person going to need next from me? Where is this going next? What skill do they not have that they might need to know? What offering can I give them? And then you multiply that by 30 some classes, and it can feel very overwhelming. But it's really not as bad. I'm doing a terrible job selling it right now. It's really not bad, because a lot of time, the first time I really saw it working in my classroom, I can vividly remember I was sitting at my desk and I looked up and just every student was working. And I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself, like, oh my gosh, somebody's going to walk by and think I'm not doing anything. But they were just all so engaged in what they were doing and work. And so, you move around the room and you check in and you ask questions and whatever. But it's just, I can't even describe. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my classroom ever, I think. So yeah. So those three sentences, what do musicians do? The child is the musician. The music room is the child studio. Everything just comes from those three sentences. So it's really giving the creative control over to the students and shifting your role to facilitator.
I love those moments when you look around the classroom and you're like, nobody needs me right now.
Yes. What's happening?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so before we get into like what this looks like, I have a question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I need you to say it anyways. Our goal isn't that they're all going to become professional musicians, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, really. I mean, my goal really, I think, is just that every student finds a stake in my classroom in coming, whether it's something that they're going to carry with them, lifelong. And those skills, I mean, you guys know, and your listeners, I'm sure, are seasoned and know that the skills that we're building in our students as musicians are skills that are going to be applicable over every area of life. That's so much, I think, in the arts. I think we give so much of that and so much of ourselves to that. So yes, the goal is not that every student is going to come out and, go to Juilliard, of course. But there are students who take that creative control and take that into other areas of their life and really figure out what they want to do. For some of them, it's just empowering them to be free thinkers and really just not be afraid to pursue the things that they want to do and the things that they're interested in, which for me is really big.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think sometimes we think like, but we have to give them all these skills so they can be professionals. Well, okay. Some of them, they might be, yes. Right. But really it's just this idea of the lifelong musicianship in whatever capacity that looks like for you. And if that's just going to concerts, that's okay too. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would think with this studio approach, like kids would see themselves as musicians and composers and all those things, because, that kind of environment helps them see themselves as those things.
Yes. And they're treated like that too. You are a musician when you come in this room. You're not learning to be one. You're not, we are all on an equal playing field in here. Do I have more skills than you do and more knowledge? Absolutely. But that's why I'm here to help you. We're all doing the same thing in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think I'm really at the point where so what does this look like in the class, right?
That's the big question. I know.
Yeah.
So it has definitely evolved a lot. I'll send you guys the links. I have my NAFME presentation where I talked, like I went through point by point, was recorded. It was during the COVID times. And so that's out there in the world if people are interested in like a more in-depth um, description than we're going to get into today. But it has definitely evolved even since then. So, and it's always evolving really from year to year. So in an art room, in a visual art room, the way that it's broken down is by media. So it could be there's a drawing studio and a painting studio and a sculpture studio and, just all these different things. So in my room, it's broken down that same way, only instead of markers and crayons and pencils, it's boom whackers and ukuleles and keyboards and, whatever. So I have it's crazy. If you walked into my room on like a random day, you'd be like, what's even happening in here? Because there's constant just action everywhere. So I have tried to, as much as possible, get electronic instruments that headphones can be plugged into. We have two full like Alesis electric drum sets. I've got electric keyboards. Obviously you can plug in, and splitters, headphone splitters are key for collaboration. That's just a little tip that I picked up along the way. And then I'm super blessed to have a really, really good relationship with our custodians. They're great friends of mine. And so when I decided to be extra crazy and ridiculous, I asked them if they would build me a recording studio in the back of my room. And so they did, and it's phenomenal. And it's not totally soundproof, but it's definitely, we've got foam up on the walls and stuff, and it's definitely a sound dampening room. And that's really great because then kids can go in there to record final projects when they're finished. I have a lot of kids who have recently started to like, oh, we're allowed to bring our band instruments in here? Like, yeah, absolutely. But you're going to go in this room when you're playing, like you can buzz on your mouthpiece, you can practice your fingering, but when it's time to like full out play, you're going to just bop into there real quick. And so, I've kind of learned along the way what kind of works and what's too noisy. I have electric guitars, which again, you can plug headphones into amps. And the usual stuff. I teach ukulele instead of recorder, which is a really big, people go one way or the other on that. But I also teach guitar, so that's a good prep for my own courses later on. So we've got ukuleles in there. I've got boom whackers because who doesn't love a boom whacker? And then, traditional orff instruments and non-pitched percussion and all that kind of stuff. So kids are really free to use pretty much whatever they want at a certain level. So like, for example, I teach ukulele in the 4th grade. They have to pass a certain set of benchmarks. Like you have to show me you can play A, B, and C before you're allowed to use this for your own independent project. However, what that could look like is I haven't passed A, B, and C yet, but I'm going to work on A, B, and C, and that's going to be my project. I'm going to do a skill-based project instead of a creative project this time. And that's going to help me get to passing A, B, and C sooner so that then I can take this and do something more creative with it for my next project cycle. And then essentially what class looks like, so I have all these different offerings. What class looks like is kids come to my room. It's a free for all, pretty much sit wherever you want as long as you're not being rude or disrespectful. I'll do a 7-minute, I try really hard to keep it to 7 minutes because my classes are so short. A demo or a mini lesson or a mini lecture. So I'm teaching a skill or a concept, or hey, this is band lab and we're going to talk about how you can use this for such and such, or here's how you make your own loops in GarageBand. We're going to work on that today, or whatever. And I gauge that really by like what the students are interested in. So if there's a lot of them that are really, really into the production side of things this week, I'm focusing more on BandLab and Incredibox and GarageBand and, those kinds of easy DAW kind of things. So it just depends. Sometimes it's like, oh, hey, we're at this part in the year and we really don't have So Me down yet. So we're going to really spend some time on that today. Or whatever. Sometimes it's a skill builder. So, hey, I've taught you this thing. Can you show me how you can use it or whatever? And then after that 7 minutes is over, it's an open studio time. So that's their time to go get what they need and work towards whatever their project is at the time. They do typically four projects a year, one every quarter. So I do a first check-in where they're coming and saying, here's what I think I'm going to do for my project. This is my plan. And once they have done that check-in, that's the project they have to continue with. So whatever happens, something doesn't work or I was working with my friend and we're not friends anymore. Well, how are we going to figure this out? Because this is the project I need to see by the end. And that engage and persist tenet is really important in my classroom. That's really hard for students in the beginning. But the more you can't give on it, you have to like really push them to continue with that. So once they've done their first check-in, then they are free to start working on their project. Some students will work on projects for a couple music times. Sometimes they'll take a break. It's totally up to them how much time they want to put into it. I require that it has to be worked on at least 3 music times, but the time is up to them. It could be 5 minutes for 3 music times. It could be the whole time. It's up to them how much work and effort they want to put into it. And then they do a final check-in at the end of the quarter where they're coming back and saying, here's my finished project. Here's a reflection on it. I have them do a peer review. So someone else in the class that's not part of their project, who is also not me, has to listen or look at their project and give them feedback. And I have a form that I use for that so that it's a little bit more official and really gets them thinking the way that I want them to be thinking. And then that's it. That's the whole cycle. And then it starts over again. Some students will work on a project starting in the first quarter, and it will be a project that takes them the entire year. So they might do their final check-in and say, this is where I am. This is the progress I've made. Here's my plan to continue for next quarter. Some students have that shorter attention span. I would totally be one of those kids that would be doing a different project every week because just that's how my brain works. And so they have really that flexibility and creative control really for what they're doing, but also how they're doing it. And then of course I'm obviously providing guidance and suggestions along the way. Well, hey, did you think about it this way? Or what if we reframe this? Because this doesn't seem like it's really working, or it seems like you might be frustrated or whatever. But that's really the cycle. So they come, they learn, they do. That's the important part. And then we kind of check in along the way, and the projects are up to them.
That
it's
sounds
a lot.
like
I'm sorry.
Fun. No, but it's great, and it sounds like fun, and it sounds like they're engaged in it. And I like that you have those structure with the check-ins, but yet there's a lot of flexibility and freedom within that.
Absolutely.
And maybe I missed. Did you say how long the class periods are?
I didn't. So
Okay.
it changes year to year. The last couple of years, our class periods have been 30 minutes, and I see the kids once a week. So it's really tight, and that's really why I try to really keep myself down to that 7 minutes. And there will be days too that are just, when we're getting close to project completion, it's like, come in and get to work. I'm not going to take any of your time today. So I do really try to keep that short. I've started setting timers on my phone to really help myself, because the kids it's crazy. They know how long that 7 minutes, they know what that feels like. And when you get close to that 7 minutes, they're like, okay, all right. Is it time for open studios? We got stuff to do, so they keep me on track too.
Yeah.
So fun. So I'm thinking about I mostly teach instrumental and at the upper grades. So yeah, one of my questions would be, do you have to do any performances? And is that something that's a constraint within your system?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. So I used to do, before I was really, really, truly into tab, I used to do a kindergarten through 3rd grade Christmas holiday, extravaganza thing. And a lot of that was mostly because I was really into the tab for the older kids, because it was so much easier to get them started into it. Whereas like kindergartners are coming in, I'm like, well, you're learning how to be at school still. Like, I don't know that I can give you this much freedom in here. And I have really started to, like, that was an area for me that I knew this is something I need to work on and figure this out and try some things and not be afraid to fail. And I definitely failed several times. But I've gotten to a point where I'm really doing second grade and up is fully they're doing choice and doing tab, like pretty much from the first day of school. First grade and kindergarten, obviously, like I mentioned, first grade was a little different last year. So I'm hoping to get back into the norm this year. First grade and kindergarten, we do kind of the first half of the year is learning what's available in the music room, how to treat the things in the music room. And then I start to switch over to more tab in like the spring semester when we come back to school in January. It's still very limited though. So it might be like, these are the 2 things you can choose between today, or the 3 things. Um, and then in second grade, instead of doing projects, we do song challenges. And then they have to incorporate skills. So it might be like, we're learning about dynamics this month. So in your song challenge that you're going to show me at the end of the month, I want to see piano and forte in there somewhere. Yeah. And I want to be able to hear it. I don't want to just see it on the paper. I want to be able to tell that it's there. So it changes a little bit. And so I did get some, I don't know what the right word is, like some pushback from my colleagues, really. I'm not even sure it was coming so much from parents as much as my colleagues were like, where are all these performances? They're not doing, this, that, and the other thing. And for me, it's really tough because I know performance is so important, and I teach those performance classes and ensembles at the middle school and high school. So I know it's like, I need to get these kids ready to be able to do that. But also, I only have 30 minutes a week. So for me to be able to say, I'm going to take time away from this to do this totally unrelated thing that half of the kids are going to be really excited about and half the kids are going to absolutely hate and be behavior issues, like, it's just not worth it for me. So what we did is we had a creative solution, because of course that's what we do. So I do teach, as I mentioned, a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade choir. So if you want to sing, come on and join the choir, and you get to perform at concerts and you get to learn that. And that's great. Sometimes I'll open that up, like at the Christmas concert I might have. Last year I had 2nd grade just learn a couple of Christmas tunes, and they came and sang as part of our Christmas concert. Sometimes I'll open it up to like, hey, you're not in choir, but you're in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. If you want to do the pop concert with us, we're doing Taylor Swift, so, or whatever the thing is that they're super into. So I do like try to provide some opportunities for that. However, the art teacher and I got together and we created this, we call it the Make It, Take It night. And it's a huge, just family community event we do in the spring. And basically what we do is we take all of our stuff down to the gym, and we have a giant open studio, art and music, in the gym, where the kids can bring their families in and say like, hey, this is what I'm working on, or this is what I do in the music studio, or this is what I do in the art studio, because that's really showcasing what's actually happening on a day-to-day for them. And then we'll pull out some guided sessions. I usually do some like Pete the Cat sing-alongs and a ukulele play-along for like 4th grade and up. We've done like bucket drumming and, just some stuff to get people into the classrooms. That our art teacher will do blind contour drawings, which is really cute because the kids sit across from their parents and draw, and the parents are drawing. And we have food trucks come in, and sometimes the kids will perform or do things, or whatever. Next year we're planning a black light thing, so they're going to do some black light art, and then we're going to have some of the kids like enter a contest to do like EDM type music, and we're going to have that playing in the blacklight room as people are coming through. So we do try to showcase what's happening, and I do try to create opportunities for performance, but nothing that's like, you have to do this thing or it's your grade depends on it, because not every student wants to perform. And it's important to give them those opportunities, and we learn about performing in the classroom. That's part of what we do. But to say you have to learn this one thing and we're all going to do the same thing, and I don't teach like that anymore. And so it's not fair to make them learn like that just so that I can parade them around in front of their parents for a half an hour.
What kind
I
of
love
response?
that so
Yeah,
much. Sorry,
I
Kathryn.
know.
I was just like, yes,
Okay.
I
that's
know.
amazing.
And I would say, I
Yeah.
wonder what kind of response do you get from parents at that make it and take it night?
It's been great. Honestly, we've had, I think last year we took a couple years off because our teacher took a sabbatical. And I didn't want to throw that on it, like someone who was only in there for, a year or two, like, hey, we do this huge event and you're going to be in charge of half of it. Just didn't seem fair. So we took a couple of years off. But I want to say we had like over 300 people come
Mm.
to the one that we just did in this spring. And typically the response of the parents who are there is that they love it and they're very engaged. And I think it's really cool for the kids to be able to show their parents the stuff that they can do. It's like the ultimate show off
Yeah.
talent thing. Like, Dad, look, we get to use these drum sets. Like we bring everything down, put your headphones on, Dad. I'm gonna play you like what I've been doing and just, and then Dad's sitting down and playing at the drum set. No, Dad, no, you got to do it like this, And so it's that for me, like being able to watch that and see the joy that they have in sharing and the parents' joy and like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Man, my music teacher never let me play electric guitars in third grade. Yeah, what he's playing might sound totally not great to a grown up ear, but you know what? He thinks he's the next Jimi Hendrix over there, and so we're gonna encourage that, because that might turn into something. So the reaction and of parents who are there, I think is really good. I think it's getting people there that is always the tricky part. The food trucks helped a lot, I will say that.
Good
Yeah.
thinking.
I would say
Yeah.
just go from a parent experience, like how much more did you learn about your kid and see he or her excitement, right?
Yes.
It's so personalized. Whereas if you went to a kind of a traditional performance, there's just a
Hmm.
lot less you can talk about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not, I mean, you're never going to please everybody. I'm sure there are still parents who wish that they could come see the Christmas thing, or, well, I buy my daughter a new dress every year for Christmas, and where's she going to wear it now? There's always going to be that, but you just have to focus on the positive and the joy that, for me, it's about the kids. It's not, I can
Yep.
stand up to grownups all day long who don't understand or believe or think I should be doing things a different way. The proof is in my kids and what they're able to accomplish and what they're doing and the joy that they find in doing it. So for me, that's enough. I can handle, everything else
Yeah.
because I see that it's working.
Yeah.
Well, and as you said, they do have performance opportunities in chorus, and then you mentioned
Hmm.
that there's band. So yeah, it's not like.
Yes.
But I think that was something that always bothered me so much when I taught beginning band is I didn't like we had this winter concert and I didn't want to spend every day shoving a couple of songs down their throat. I wanted them to learn to play their
Right.
instruments and to love music and all
Yes.
of those things. So for me, I made a similar kind of shift just to like an informants type
Yeah.
thing, that because the performance that wasn't the main
Yes.
thing. The main thing
It's
was like
not.
this love and joy of music.
Yeah. So one of the huge tenets of TAB is the child is the product. That's literally the sentence. That's the statement. And that's really the one. I mean, I think that's the one that stuck out to me the most, and that was honestly a big concern for me when I started and I shifted. Like, I remember having a conversation. So obviously we're a very small district. Our department is me and the band director. That's it. Um, and so I had a conversation with him at some point, and I was like, listen, Ben, you've got to tell me if these kids are coming into fifth grade band and don't know what they need to know. Like, if you're seeing a drop off in skill or note reading or whatever, like, you've got to communicate that to me, because then I can shift what I'm doing. And really, like, the first year, maybe it was like not so much a drop off, but just a difference, because part of what we do is in the creative process is notation looks different from student to student, right? It might be wavy lines on a paper. It might be coloring in blocks for a boomwhacker song. It might be notes on a staff. So some of that I think was a little bit of a learning curve. And I realized, okay, that means I need to start working in traditional notation maybe a little bit sooner just so that they have time to get used to it and figure out how I can take, here's the song I made that looks like this. How do I make that look like something closer to notes on a staff? So maybe it's not the actual notes on a staff, but maybe it's lines, and we're representing pitches moving up and down by just having one up here and one down here, and it goes back and forth or whatever. And then we get into, I can guide you into that from there. But that was a really big concern of mine, less so even than the performance aspect, is like, are they going to be prepared for traditional musicianship when they get to that level? And so we've really worked together a lot on that. And I think that's a big part of, the collaboration and communication within your department, especially if you're not in a department like mine, where, like, if my kids get to middle school choir in 6th grade and they're not ready, the only person I can blame is myself. But if you're not in a department like that, if you've got, 2 different elementary teachers and a middle school teacher and, whatever, you've really got to all kind of not necessarily be on the same page, but communicate your needs to one another so that you're making sure you're not, taking away from what someone else is doing later on. If that makes any sense. I'm sorry. My brain is like,
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, what I'm hearing you saying is just, you're having those conversations up front and saying like, hey, I'm trying these things, let's work together. And it sounds like it's working.
Yes, it is.
You mentioned, I think back towards the beginning, that you're starting to see impacts like now at the high school level.
Yes.
What's that like?
Oh my gosh, so many different things. So our band director teaches general music for middle school. So our kids, I think I don't know if it's national or if it's our state, they have to have a music credit in middle school. So it has to either be band or choir or general music in middle school. And then beyond that, they can kind of decide if they want to or don't want to. I really should know that. That's very embarrassing that I don't. So he teaches general music, and it used to be very like, we would learn this thing and do a project and learn this thing and do a project and, a presentation and whatever. And so he has started kind of, because I think a lot of the kids were getting to general music and expecting it to be like general music was in elementary school. And like, what do you mean we have to learn how to write a drill? Like, what do you mean we have to learn about this one composer? I'm a composer. And so it's been really interesting working with him to try to see how he can shift, and still teach the things he wants to teach, but give them a little bit more creative control and freedom. So that's been really cool, because it's like they're becoming free thinkers, but they're also like, they're advocating for what they want and what they need, which is huge and awesome. And then, I think for me, what I'm seeing is the leadership really, and the collaboration between, like, hey, my middle school kids will come to class and say, hey, I think we really need a day of sectionals. Could we have a day of sectionals this week? And like, this is what we want to do. And we're going to help the 7th graders. And, like, how do you say no to that? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it Thursday. Let me know what you need. You want tracks? What do you want me to do? No, we're going to run it. Just, I think, great. And just seeing them be empowered, I think, as musicians, and seeing how they're taking those skills into other areas of life, I just think, is really cool. In my guitar classes, we do several composition projects. And then my advanced strings, I tailor those classes. It's usually only 1 or 2 kids at a time. And it's like, what do we do in advanced strings 1? I don't know. What do you want to do? You want to learn ukulele? You want to learn bass? You want to get some orchestral strings in here? You want to write? I had one student who was like, I'm into songwriting. Could we like do something where I record on guitar, and then maybe I learn bass and I record a bass part, and then maybe we could get my friend who plays drums? Yeah, absolutely. And he produced an entire song by the end of the semester. So just seeing, it's like little things here and there, but really just seeing them be empowered as musicians as they move up into middle school and high school has been so rewarding. And just like, oh, it's working. They're doing it, like they're really, they're out here doing it. And those are the things that are going to stick with them forever,
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm sorry. I'm so passionate about it
I
because
Yeah,
it's so cool to see. And it's just so cool to see.
Yeah.
that's awesome. Mm. So, when we wrote our book, Pass the Baton, one of the things that we included at the end of each chapter was a list of things you could try tomorrow. So
Yes.
people really liked that because it was very, it's very actionable. It
Yes.
takes something that can be, big. What would you suggest, in your world? What is something someone could try tomorrow or, when they are in school the next day that would kind of lead them on this path?
Yeah. I think just giving some kind of creative control to your students. So whether that's, you're teaching recorder and, it's like we've all learned how to play hot cross buns. What can you make with those notes that is totally your own? Or, just empowering them in those small ways to not be afraid to fail and not be afraid to make a mistake. I think the hardest transition for me when I switched is like, this is an entire year's change. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
this is not something you're going to just go into class tomorrow and be like, I'm going to teach this way now.
Right.
It's not going to work. You're going to fail. It's going to be awful. You're going to be stressed. Like, and that's when I present on this, that's like one of the things, because people get so excited about it. It's like, you're going to have to start slow. I didn't do that. I started too fast. And so I can tell you from experience, it's bad. Don't do it. I wanted to get there so badly. And what happened was, because our students are so used to, like I think I said before the podcast started, that industrial education of come in and everybody does the same thing and you're all expected to follow the same rules and do the same things and speak only when spoken to, and so you go from something like that to, hey, do whatever you want. And kids are like, I don't know what to do or where to start, or what do you mean? Why aren't you telling me what I'm supposed to be doing? And that's really hard for some kids. Even now, I have kids who will come up and be like, I don't know what I want to do for my project. Okay, well, let's talk about that then. When we have open studio days and you can do whatever you want, what is the thing that you think you do the most? What are you drawn to? Well, I'm usually on an iPad because I really like, the drum pads, and all my friends are on iPads. Okay, well, cool. So let's talk about that. Like what can we do and how can we turn that into something? But I would say, just as much as you can empower your kids to have any kind of control or choice over even the smallest little things. We're learning So Me. How can you make a pattern with So Me and share it with your friend and see if they can sing it back to you? And whatever, just those little things that start to give them some confidence in, yeah, I can be creative and not have somebody telling me everything I need to do.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. And thank you for also mentioning, don't just jump in and change everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, please don't.
It's the best way to crash and burn.
Right. Another
Yeah.
question too is, do you have to be an expert on all of the instruments of your room? Like,
Oh my gosh, absolutely not.
right?
I I sometimes I'm learning with them,
Mhm.
honestly. And that's okay. And it's okay for them to see that, because that's just another thing that shows them, we're all here, we're all doing the same thing. There are things that I don't know. I mean, I know a lot and I'm pretty great, but there are things that I don't know, and I'm not afraid to show them that I don't know that, or I'll bring in other people, which is also so great for them to see. Hey, this person that I know in the community is a really great guitar player and uses a loop pedal. Can you come in and show them? Because I'm a guitar player, but I've never used a loop pedal. So, and looping is a lot of what we do in electronic music. So let's, show them some things. Or like, I do not play drums, not even a little bit. Never have, never probably will. I wish I could. I'd be so cool, but just not my thing. And so just have, and that creates an opportunity for them to see lots of different people and lots of different career paths and lots of different ways to continue to be interested in music, that isn't just performing. So yes, it's definitely okay to not be, and it's okay to show them that you're not okay or knowledgeable about those things too.
I mean, and really,
Absolutely.
how can you, right? Like, it just,
Yeah. Right.
it's okay.
Yes.
You can let that go. We don't have to be
Yes.
an expert at everything. We're not.
Yes.
So,
No.
yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. So thank you so much for being here with us. How can people connect with you and learn more about you?
So like I mentioned, my NAFME proposal, my goodness, my brain is fried. My NAFME presentation is out there. It's on the NAFME website somewhere, I think, but I can send you guys a link if you want to link it with
Yes.
your podcast as well.
Yep.
And that just, I go a little bit more in depth into like how to really make that switch over into your classroom. My email address I can give to you as well. That's the best way to reach out to me. You can find me on the North Baltimore Local Schools website. Make sure it's Ohio, North Baltimore Local
Not
Schools,
Maryland.
Ohio, not Maryland. And yes, I am so open to that. I've had people email me, lots of people email me after presentations and say, hey, I'd really like to get into this, and I'm happy to help spread the gospel of tab, and just really show people that it's doable, and it has changed so much. But I would say one of the biggest things is classroom management. So people who are struggling with behavior issues and classroom management, if you give your kids a stake in what they're doing and they're invested, a lot of that goes away. So please, yes, email is the best. And I can give you guys that too, but please, please, please reach out. I'm so happy to give you more information or answer questions or just whatever. So
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This was great. And I
yes,
know people are just going to love it.
yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.